If you like baton twirlers, this was the inauguration for you. Donald J. Trump's inauguration in January of 2017. If you get claustrophobic like I do in big crowds, then this was also the inauguration for you, apparently. Or if you really don't like particularly well-known bands, or you're a big fan of someone called DJ Ravi Drums, in that case, Trump's inauguration would be irresistible for you. But from a basic math perspective, Donald Trump's inauguration defied all rules of nature. It was twice as expensive as President Obama's inauguration and half as dazzling. The Trump Inaugural Fund raised a record-breaking $107 million. Most of that was spent. But where the money went and to whom remains an open question. Despite promises that there would be a full and clean external audit of the inaugural committee finances, it's not clear that that ever happened. So back in December, we learned that federal prosecutors were investigating whether the inaugural committee misspent some of the $107 million that it raised from donations. At that point, the criminal probe by the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office was in, quote, early stages. Reportedly, they were looking at whether foreigners illegally funneled donations to President Trump's inaugural committee, and specifically whether people from Middle East nations, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, used straw donors to disguise their donations to the funds. Now remember, the federal prosecutors in this story are based in Manhattan, in the Southern District of New York. These are separate and apart from those who work for Special Counsel Robert Mueller and his Russia investigation. This is a different investigation. Back in December, the reporting called this criminal investigation in its early stages. Tonight, we've got breaking news because that early stage investigation now appears to be in full bloom. Multiple news organizations reporting tonight that federal prosecutors in New York reached out today to President Trump's inaugural committee. The committee was served with subpoenas and ordered to turn over documents about its donors, finances, and activities, as well as, quote, any benefits handed out, including tickets and photo opportunities with the president, federal disclosure filings, vendor contracts, and more. This is coming out of the Southern District of New York's Public Corruption section. Totally different from the Russia investigation. It's worth remembering that Donald Trump's longtime personal attorney, Michael Cohen, and the Trump Organization's chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg, have both been cooperating with these same federal prosecutors, in addition to Rick Gates, a Trump campaign deputy who also worked on the inauguration. So it's not clear where all this is coming from, but they've got a lot of people who might be telling them something about the inauguration. The Wall Street Journal says that among the documents that prosecutors want is anything regarding donations to the committee made by or on behalf of foreign nationals. Joining me now is Rebecca Ballhaus, one of the Wall Street Journal reporters who has been on this story. Rebecca, thank you for joining us on such short notice, and thank you for your reporting on this.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, the Southern District of New York is looking for these documents. Do you have any indication whether the inaugural committee is willing to hand them over?
It's seeming that they are. The committee put out a statement earlier tonight saying that they had just received the subpoena and were reviewing it, but that it was their intention to cooperate.
The subpoena coming from the Southern District of New York makes people wonder whether it's related to or there's any overlap with Robert Mueller's office and investigation. Do you know about that?
Well, we know that Mueller has, at one point at least, been looking into donations to the inaugural fund, specifically from foreign nationals. It's not clear to us whether that's ongoing or whether that's been referred to the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office. We do know that this investigation into the inaugural fund grew out of the previous investigation into Michael Cohen and his business dealings. Among the records that were seized in the April raid of his properties was a tape of him having a conversation with an advisor to the inaugural about her concerns that some of the money was being misspent. So we know that those are the origins of the investigation.
Ask you this, Rebecca. What are they looking at? Because there are a few questions if one looks at this inauguration. The fact that it was really expensive, but didn't seem to look like something that was as expensive as it would be. So is it money that's being funneled places and a question of just following that money? Or is the bigger concern whether foreign officials, foreign governments could have been using this as a way to influence Donald Trump or gain favor with Donald Trump?
Well, our takeaway from the subpoena that we reviewed tonight is that their investigation appears to be really broad. They seem to be looking at every part of this. They ask for documents related to, as you mentioned, any foreign nationals who donated or any discussions of possible donations from foreign nationals. But they also ask for records related to any direct payments from donors to vendors, which would have allowed the donors to effectively flout disclosure rules. And we do know that Rick Gates, who, as you mentioned, was the deputy chairman on the inaugural committee, was asking several vendors in the weeks leading up to the inauguration if they would be willing to accept payment directly from donors. The other thing that we know they're asking for is any records related to one donor in particular, Imad Zuberi, who's a Los Angeles-based financier. He is actually a longtime Democratic donor who, in December 2016, donated $900,000 to the Trump inaugural committee. He's also someone who once registered as a foreign agent on behalf of Sri Lanka. Now, it's not illegal for inaugural committees to accept donations from foreign agents, only from foreign nationals. But it's interesting that this is the only person, the only donor that they specifically single out in tonight's subpoena.
We do know, though, of one person who in the past has said that they donated money. They were a straw donor. They were representing a foreign national who wanted tickets to inaugural events. So we do know that some of that activity took place.
That's right. We saw last year in August, Washington consultant Sam Patten pleaded guilty, and as part of that guilty plea, said that he had used a U.S. citizen to serve as a straw purchaser so that a prominent Ukrainian oligarch could attend the inauguration. So that's at least one part of this that's already come out.
All right, an interesting development in the story. Rebecca, thanks for your reporting on this. Rebecca Ballhaus is a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. We'll stay on top of this story. Still ahead tonight, why some of the intelligence professionals responsible for briefing the president say he's endangering the nation by ignoring them. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.